Hi, everyone. My name is Karolina. I'm a owner of Basic Strategy consultancy firm, and I'm just starting to run a regular podcast with iGaming next. Been given an amazing opportunity, which I'm really excited about, and even more so excited with my very first guest today on the podcast, Ulrik Bengtsson. Whilst he needs no introduction, I'm going to give a very quick highlight of Ulrik's career. Ulrik is a CEO of WilliamHILL Group. He joined the group in 2018 as a chief digital officer and has been responsible for key projects within the company. I myself had a pleasure to work with Ulrik back at Betsson, where he was also chief executive officer and responsible in multiple acquisitions for Betsson Group. Ulrik has extensive experience in digital consumer services. Welcome. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you.
So Ulrik, last time we've seen each other was close to a year ago. I was in the offices of WilliamHILL in central London. You were about to embark on a really busy roadshow. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on the past year? It's been a very challenging year, I think, for WilliamHILL, the most challenging likely in its history. So I wanted to ask you, how you guys dealt with all the challenges that's been introduced during the last year through the pandemic, and what were your first thoughts that came through your head when the situation started to unfold?
Well, clearly 2020 was a year like no other, and I think when we lost sport, the Premier League, on the 18th of March, and when we had to close our retail shops, that's when it really hit home for us. The initial thoughts was quite defensive, I think, initially, to protect WilliamHILL, protect our people, and protect our customers. So we really focused on that. As things evolved, I think we became a little bit more forward-leaning, and we decided to really evolve and double down on our product development. And we also decided to significantly improve our balance sheet by doing the equity placing that we did in June.
I think that's very quick thinking, and I was there, so I remember some of the conversations that were happening. But can you tell me a little bit, this is a challenging situation with all the retail closed for prolonged amount of time and repeatedly sports disappearing. Tell us a little bit about the shareholder meetings. How were you able to reassure the shareholders in a situation that can be looking pretty negative?
Well, fortunately, we had good relations with most, if not all, of our major shareholders before the crisis. And we adopted an approach to be very transparent. No one knew what was going to happen at the time, but to give them as much transparency as we could of our view of where things were going to evolve. And I think that helps. It helped. And then, of course, we got the covenant waivers, which also sort of put people's mind at ease. And then again, the equity placing in June helped as well. I think then throughout the summer and in August, when we were able to repay the government furlough, I think that was the final sort of evidence that the company was now in really good shape, and we were out of the worst of this sort of crisis.
And when the actual situation unfolded, the first news came out of sports event being closed. What was your very first thought or action? Pick up the phone, write an email, go for a walk, and take a deep breath?
Well, I remember that very, very clearly. I think it was a combination of many feelings: shock, panic, and sort of despair. But I do remember writing a quite comprehensive mail to our board. We did a lot of communication internally to our people to reassure them that WilliamHILL were in a good standing overall, and that we were quite confident in our business model, that despite this, no matter how long it was going to take, we were very confident that as soon as sports would be back, we would also bounce back. And we had a healthy business model, healthy strategy, and we were not in an industry that was going to sort of go under on back of this ultimately, and not an industry under distress coming into the crisis. Our products and services lends themselves to be delivered digitally, And that was, of course, a huge advantage in a situation like this. So we did know that we had a good business model, but again, the time and the pace and when all of this sort of came down was just incredible.
Right. So speaking of confidence, you mentioned the confidence was important for the reassurance, and you do come across as a very strong and confident person. I'm sure that you are aware. For some people, can also be seen as intimidating. So, what prepared you for being able to be this calm and composed in such difficult situations? And if you have any tips for people who strive for senior leadership, how to develop this kind of skill set, because as you said, it's key to remain composed.
Well, it's really hard to give advice on things like this. The first thing, though, I think is important is context. Every situation is different, and I think you have to recognize that and understand and read the situation and what needs to be done. And then I'm a believer in doing it your way. Don't work after someone else's playbook. Work with your strengths. And finally, of course, people. You have to recognize that one of the biggest parts of your job is to make sure you have really, really good people in your teams across the business and good relations with the stakeholders.
I think it's very important. And working with you a couple of occasions, I've already learned about your composure, and I keep laughing about the situation where we had a conference call during the pandemic. I couldn't remove my child from the room, and I specifically told him, please, don't interrupt this call. This is a very important man. He wouldn't be happy if you interrupt. And the first thing that my kid did was run to his dad, say, Daddy, Mommy is talking to a very scary man. It's just all was live on call. I thought I'm gonna die of embarrassment then. But tell me now, so very challenging year. You've guys done the right thing on communicating and adjustments and cost control. In your results updates, it can see that WilliamHILL, despite all these challenges, has come out on top. Can you tell us what are the key drivers behind it, and maybe reiterate where WilliamHILL ended up last year?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was a difficult year, of course, but ultimately we finished the year very strongly, and I think we adopted an approach throughout all of this to focus on what's important for the company, and what we've said is our strategic focus areas: customer, team, and execution, and we did that very well. So looking back, the results we've had has been very strong in the greater things of things, in greater scheme of things.
Right, and I think focus on people was probably very, very helpful. I know that you've done a lot of effort in protecting your employees from the impact of the situation, both in retail but also your online organization employees. Can you tell us a little bit about the furlough scheme and how you guys really did do a lot more than you need to for your guys?
Well, I think the success is based on a lot of things. People definitely being one of them. We really made a decision early on to take care of our people in this. We've done a huge amount of communication, and when it comes to our retail staff, we opted to pay them 100% of salary throughout the pandemic. Another important part of the year has been product. We made great strides in our product throughout the year, and really improved our velocity in how we deploy product, and have had a lot of new exciting innovation coming to the market. So people and product has definitely been key. And then execution. We talk a lot about execution at WilliamHILL, and we knew back a few years ago it was not necessarily our strongest suit, but we have really improved in that department, and that has helped during the pandemic. Our ability to do what we say we're going to do has been greatly improved, and served us really well in the times when everyone are locked in the living rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about product, and WilliamHILL is a super diversified organization with many business units and verticals. If you're going to name one product pride last year, what would it be?
Well, that is an impossible question. There are so many, but we can do one per business area,
Okay.
possibly.
Sure.
So the launch of gaming to our US product was huge. We of course had very strong sportsbook footprint for many years and continue to evolve in that department. But the launch of gaming in New Jersey was a big win for us. For our UK business, we did the first major sort of architectural upgrade on our front end and the new bet slip and new sportsbook front end throughout the year, which enabled us also to launch some really exciting features coming into the Premier League season. So that was massive. And for our international business, what we've done to our Spanish product, improving the casino offering, launching a single wallet, a little bit late, but nevertheless, finally, has given us good momentum also in Spain.
So it sounds like a lot of things has been still happening. The brakes were not put on because of the pandemic. Again, from working together in the past, I know that you're a product person. You have big focus on excellence and on getting things done. How were the things getting done, considering the work from home situation, the remoteness of the teams? You have offices in Gibraltar, Leeds, UK. Were teams able to pull it together and deliver this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, one of the previous answers here, we have done a lot of work around execution at WilliamHILL, and we talked a lot about execution and the importance of sort of doing what we say we're going to do. And I think in the pandemic, our teams have really come together and collaborated in a way, we almost didn't see before. So if anything, I think the execution and collaboration around our teams have actually improved in this period. And I think you can see that in the product and improvements in our product throughout the last sort of 12 months as well. So in some way, the pandemic actually helped our sort of collaboration and execution. So, very pleased with that. But of course, as for anyone, it's been difficult, and I think it's quite intense to be in front of your screens and that has also, given us a lot to think about in terms of what do we do to help our teams to disconnect. And we've done a lot of work on culture and sort of refreshed our HR policies in these times as well. And we launched many initiatives to make sure that people can maintain balance and improve balance. We launched power hours for all WilliamHILL employees, for example. So it is important and increasingly important, I think, to make sure we stay in touch with our colleagues when we're not in the office.
Yeah, I feel like working from home for the past year, which is not a new thing for me because as a consultant, this is my main type of work, but not being able to see people when you're actually a little bit tired of being just with yourself, it's really tricky. So hats off for pulling this off, and it also shows commitment from your employees where they deliver on that remote work methodology. Moving on a little bit from COVID matters, because we could talk about it probably for weeks. There's just so many subjects within. But I wanted to ask about something that I know it's close to WilliamHILL heart, which is the regulation, player protection. I've been working with you guys on projects that are related to this, and I know you really treat it seriously. You're involved in the code of conduct for games and driving this forward. There has been a lot of commotion and a lot of talk about black market, and some critics refer to operator stance as a way of preventing further regulation and further requirements. I'm interested to know your stand on the matter.
Yeah. No, I hear that, and then of course we listen to all the sides. I think it's important to establish that there is a huge prevalence of black market. Denying the fact that there is a black market out there is like claiming that the earth is flat. It's so evident, and the data and the PwC report that was published last week, of course, showed this. It's in the UK, it's 2.8 billion pounds wagered on black market offshore operators last year, and that's a massive amount, right? So I think we need to just establish the fact that the black market is there, it's growing, it's almost doubled in a year in the UK. Now, just because there's the black market doesn't mean we do not also embrace changes to the regulation more broadly. I think what we're saying is that given that we have this threat of black market, it's so important that we get regulation right. Because if you don't get it right, it actually will lead to less protection for many customers. and as the report showed, there is like over 500,000 customers playing on black market operators as well. So just important to get regulation right. I think that's the main point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can see this level of channelization in other markets as well. And with Germany launching new registration, a couple of weeks ago, it's also seen in the results that until there is proper ways of enforcing the black market being removed from customer accessibility, it will always be a risk where customers can just go off, and then we can't take care of them in the way that we should. So you're talking about the effort that needs to be put in. Is it possible to make sure that the process is holistic and 360 when you have so many brands? We are now 2.5 years since the Mr. Green acquisition, in which you have been instrumental, and also you have pretty impressive experience from acquisition when you were at Betsson. I think it was 8 companies, right? That you've
like that, yeah,
integrated. Yeah, so I'd be interested to know specifically in the case of Mr. Green, because that was a big, loud case. The main aspirations was to reduce sort of market dependency and diversify the business slightly. Has that acquisition helped you with that? And further, not just talking about positives, what was the main challenge of integrating this together into WilliamHILL?
No, I mean, the acquisition of Mr. Green has been tremendous for us. And it really gave us a platform to accelerate our international growth, a platform with capabilities, with people who knew local and international markets. So it has been incredible in that way. And I think that's evident also in our numbers. We've had double-digit growth all the way across the pandemic in our international business. In terms of the challenges, when you buy companies and try to integrate, ultimately it always comes down to people. And I think I was very lucky to be able to inherit some good management in the Mr. Green team, and also bring on board some really strong management in most notably Patrick, to head up the combined unit of Mr. Green and WilliamHILL International into one unit. So we adopted also a very light touch approach. We brought in Patrick and we worked with some of the key management in Mr. Green, and then sort of let them get on with it. And that's been very successful, and they have really delivered.
Will that set your sort of goal, how you want to do it, should the Caesar deal happen? I mean, I cannot not ask about it, and it's a big talking subject and not a lot discussed. So can you give me a little bit of of your insight around it? What's the value creation from this deal, and how you plan to approach it?
Well, I think the offer of 272 per share, about 2.9 billion pounds, is a good reflection of the progress we have made at WilliamHILL. It's a good reflection of the potential in the company in across our markets, but it's also a reflection of some of the challenges that lies ahead, most notably regulation. What we do know is, of course, was said at the point of the acquisition, is that the ambition of Caesars is to separate the US business from the rest of the world business. But that's pretty much what we know at this point, and it's a bit too early to go into any more details around that. But it will be exciting times ahead.
Everything, it's a combination of excitement and challenges. It seems like it never leaves you. So in general, you see WilliamHILL developing as a solid player both across UK further on and other international markets with the strengthened position with Mr. Green.
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 we grew 12% in our international business. Of course, Mr. Green and the hub and the international platform was a determining factor in that. We have said that our ambition is to continue to grow internationally, continue to grow fast-paced internationally, and continue to diversify further outside the UK and grow our international business, therefore faster than our UK business. And I see no reason why we can't continue to do that.
I think there's a great opportunity coming from the pandemic, unfortunately, because people just preferred not to use land-based venues anymore when it comes to gaming and entertainment. Cinemas, theaters, for now, not only they're closed, but people are also changing the way they interact with them, because if you start to push someone towards certain behavior for a prolonged period of time, it comes into it getting engraves into your habits. Can you tell me a little bit about your personal experience with habit forming productivity? You've got a extremely a senior position, a lot of challenges, a lot of responsibility, and I'm not going to ask how many hours a week do you work, but can you tell us a little bit, how does your day look? Whether you start the day with one of those trendy cold showers or celery juice or whatever. How does it? What's your routine?
Well, I like to putter around in the morning. So obviously the pandemic has been helpful in that way, because not having the commute and not having to travel as much, you get a little bit more time that you could use for something else. And just puttering around in the morning and reflect on some of the key things that goes on is something I like to do.
All right. And do you use any specific tools, or are you a follower of some kind of productivity guru, Inbox Zero or Productivity Ninja, or do you do it the Ulrik's way?
I do it the Ulrik way, as many other things.
I'd be surprised if you didn't. Yeah.
I think what's important, though, is obviously, you're any management role is sort of tend to be all consuming, and it is really hard to disconnect and wind down. But you have to at some point just establish the ground rules for yourself. How am I going to live my life? How I'm going to how is work going to affect that? Obviously, there are always situations where 24/7 attention is required, but other than that, you have to be clear and honest with yourself on the ground rules, and that's going to be very individual.
Right, and then here's the ultimate question that everybody wants to ask: does Ulrik Bengtsson ever procrastinate?
Very, very rarely. I just find it extremely uncomfortable to have sort of things hanging around that should have been dealt with earlier.
So getting things done all the way.
I'll just get it done.
All right. Well, Ulrik, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for all the updates. I hope that when the situation resolves itself a little bit, I'm going to be able to catch a coffee in person one day. And again, thank you for your time. This will be published tomorrow. I'd like to thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.